What's going on, guys? Jackson here from Vendetta Sports Media, and today we're going to be talking about the Calvin Ridley situation that is currently going on right now in the NFL. Normally I try to come up with some quirky intro before the little intro video, but I really couldn't think of anything, and this is going to be a fairly quick video. I feel like I just wanted to get some things off my chest, talk about this situation, and put my 2 cents in as everyone else is, because it's the internet and everybody gets a voice now. But in case you lived under a rock and you don't know what is going on, Calvin Ridley, wide receiver for the Atlanta Falcons, has been suspended an entire season playing football because he was caught gambling on NFL games. And gambling on NFL games, well, that is a no-no. And it's pretty much a no-no in any sport, that if you are an active player playing in said league, to bet on games in your league. It's the reason why Pete Rose was suspended from baseball and he is not in the Hall of Fame. I can't remember his name, but I know there was a referee from the NBA quite a few years ago that was betting on games. It was games that he reffed, and I feel like that's a bit more severe, especially because in a situation like with Pete Rose, I don't think he was ever convicted or shown that he was betting against the Cincinnati Reds. And as long as he was betting on himself, that's kind of the argument. And Pete Rose's side, he's betting on his team, he's betting on himself, therefore it's like, what's the harm? It's not like he's trying to actively lose games. And it's a similar situation with Calvin Ridley, except for Calvin Ridley was not playing at the time that he was making these bets. This occurred during the previous NFL season. He was in Florida at the time, and wherever he put a bet in, there's like this committee that basically is like a big brother to NFL players that spies on them, and they're gambling. And Calvin Ridley was flagged, and he has been fined. Well, not fined, but suspended by the NFL. I guess you could say fined, because he's losing $11 million when all he did was bet $1,500 on a couple of parlays, and that's pretty much the whole situation. He bet $1,500. He's losing like $11 million from his player salary this season. Was highly coveted, and there was a lot of rumors that he was going to be traded, but obviously those trades did not happen because Atlanta knew that the situation that was going around Ridley and figured that some sort of suspension was going to come down, and they wanted to wait and see what was going to happen after the fact until they pulled the trigger on a trade. So that's pretty much the gist of the situation. Calvin Ridley caught gambling, suspended for an entire NFL season. Sounds pretty bad on the surface, right? Yeah, obviously, but my problem is with the NFL, the environment that it's creating around gambling, and the length of the suspension. And I'll get to all that here right now. Let's talk about the gambling aspect first. Gambling in the United States is becoming much more accepted, much more, apologies if you hear a train in the background, but I'm on a train of thought myself, so before I lose that train of thought, you probably hear it in the background there, I'm gonna keep going here. Every single state in the union is starting to slowly legalize sports gambling in some shape, form, or fashion. It used to be you had to go, to Vegas or Jersey or somewhere and, place bets manually at casinos, or even places like I live in Arkansas. There's a few casinos scattered around here, but online gambling is pretty much illegal. Online sports gambling is still illegal in my state, but there's a lot of workarounds. There are apps out there, I'm not going to name any right now, that they go under the guise of daily fantasy, when really all it is that you're still just picking the over or under on what a player is going to score. Like, is Matthew Stafford, 2.5 touchdowns, more or less, pick it. You can put it all together into a parlay, and depending on how many players that you have and you get right is how much money that you earn, or how much money you lose, depending, whatever. It's still gambling is what it is. It is what it is. You can call it daily fantasy. You can slap all these other labels on it and all these other gimmicks behind it. It's still gambling. It may not be in like the traditional sense, like if you're in a state that accepts FanDuel, like literally the state right over Tennessee that's just not too far that direction from me. FanDuel is accepted. Online sports gambling is accepted. So every time I'm in Tennessee, which is fairly often because Memphis is right there and I love hanging out in Memphis, going to see friends in Memphis, then I'll hop on FanDuel. And consistently, we are seeing more and more advertisements from the NFL, from the NBA, from MLB, from NHL. They're partnering with DraftKings, with FanDuel, with these other sports books, even the mega sports books from Vegas, like MGM and all these other massive sport books. You're seeing these commercials on TV. They are heavily pushing sports gambling because it is a multi-billion-dollar industry. I know Calvin Ridley was betting on NFL teams while he is actively an NFL player. And I put actively in quotations because he was on injured reserve when he went to Florida and he was betting on games. He just ran a couple parlays and put down $1,500 in total, and that was literally it. He even says on Twitter that's exactly what he did, that's how much he bet, and then he doesn't have a gambling problem at all. So to me, it's kind of ironic, I guess, that the NFL and especially these other leagues, of course, but specifically talking about the NFL, they're pushing these websites for gambling to, basically aiding in the addiction, and they get around it because it's like gambling problem, call the hotline or whatever it is, and they have that at the bottom of every advertisement, but it's they profit off of people having gambling problems. So it's this vicious circle that goes just round and round and round, and the NFL is helping perpetuate this. But I will also say, gambling is fun sometimes, okay? I know that may seem hypocritical of me to say that, because I even admitted that I've done some gambling in the past, but it's small, minute stuff. I'm not one of these professional gamblers, and I'm not thinking I've got to hit this parlay so that way I can make my mortgage payment. I'm not that type of person. I can control myself. Some people can't. They need to be careful, obviously, but there's a lot of people like myself that they dabble in it for kicks and giggles, just to say that they were right, and then we move on, win or loss. Biggest problem I have with this whole situation, it comes down to two parts. It comes down to what is being allowed in the NFL, specifically for owners, and how they get away with anything that they want to do, and then other suspensions for what I would argue are worse crimes. So there is a tweet put out. It has got a ton of likes. It's got 188,000 likes at the time of recording this. I will put it up here so that way you guys can see it too, and also to give credit to the person that tweeted this out. But it goes through a list of some suspensions from the past and their games, and I'll just start reading it. You got Ray Rice, who everyone points to as like the case for like the NFL has a problem when it comes to figuring out how long players should be suspended for rule breaking or, bad, poor behavior. Ray Rice got a 2-game suspension for knocking his fiance out. The only reason why that man is not in the NFL or wasn't in the NFL after that situation occurred was because we had it on video. And yes, he was cut. No team signed him. He was out of the league fairly quickly, but that was all teams and owners, because signing him or keeping him on after his suspension would have been extremely bad press on their part, so they didn't want to deal with it. But Commissioner Roger Goodell only handed down a 2-game suspension to Ray Rice. Next, we have Adrian Peterson, got a 6-game suspension for felony child abuse charges. Greg Hardy, beating his girlfriend, 10-game suspension that was reduced to 4 games. Ezekiel Elliott, 6 games for his situation. And then Calvin Ridley, 17 games. And he also throws in Josh Gordon, 6 seasons for smoking weed, which is something that the NFL should honestly be ashamed of. They just need to legalize it, because there's just no need for it to be illegal anymore in the country, or honestly the country, definitely in the NFL or any other sporting league. At least stop testing for it. And there's other examples that this person doesn't list. You got Joe Mixon as another person, Tyreek Hill, another player that instantly come to my mind of players that I think that have had domestic violence situations and have faced little to no repercussions whatsoever. And there's a lot of people in this comment section of this tweet that are talking about that whatever happens in the NFL, it's just extra, it's like, it's not that big of a deal. All this other stuff is handled in criminal and civil courts, and it's the government or the state legislator that is handing down punishment, and just what happens to the NFL is extra. That's true to an extent, but you mean to tell me that you can justify suspending the dude a full season for spending $1,500 on FanDuel, and someone punches out their wife or girlfriend, knocks them out, beats them, and gets less than half a season of a suspension? I don't get it. I don't understand it. The same person also goes on to say Dante Stallworth and Leonard Little only got a season and 8-game suspensions respectively for vehicular manslaughter. Okay. And then this person also says that Henry Ruggs was technically never suspended by the league. That's true, but that kind of happened so quickly and he was cut. He's not going to have a future in the NFL again. I wouldn't think he could. Anything is possible, but you never know. You just never know these days. Because again, it's people that you've got wife beaters, girlfriend beaters, domestic abusers. They get second, third, fifth chances. I mean, Michael Vick went to prison for dog fighting, and people hated him for it and still hate him for it, and he still got a second chance. And Calvin Ridley will get a second chance. He's a young, talented receiver that still has a few more years left in his prime, so there'll still be a demand for Calvin Ridley, but a whole year suspension is insane. And all of this really boils over. This is the part that maybe angers me the most about this, is that you have owners, like the ownership of the Washington football team. Washington, was it Commanders now? Yeah, Washington Commanders. For all the things that have been going on with them, from John Gruden using racial slurs in emails that he was sending to his brother and others in the Washington front office, to basically parading the cheerleaders topless. Everybody is talking about how he needs to be forced to sell. We still know nothing about that situation. So Washington's owners are still being protected. And then not only that, but just recently came out that the owner of my team, the Miami Dolphins, Stephen Ross, supposedly was offering Brian Flores cash, former head coach Brian Flores cash, to deliberately lose and tank games. What is more detrimental to the league? What damages the shield more? A guy on injured reserve that is not actively playing football, betting on NFL games, parlays, and betting for his team to win even, or an owner that is actively trying to tank and is paying his head coach to lose? Which one is more damaging to the reputation of the league? And oh my gosh, I'm in the middle of recording this and wow, Russell Wilson's going to Denver. What is happening right now? Holy crap. I'm just at a loss for words with this. Honestly, I personally do not think Calvin Ridley should be suspended an entire season, lose $11 million. If anything, my compromise for this would be like 6 to 8 games at the very, very most. Because then even people like myself would be like, that's still a heavy suspension and losing a lot of money, but it's not a full season, man. He doesn't deserve that for $1,100. I don't care what other people say. 11, however much money it was, he just does not deserve it. It just doesn't deserve that to happen. I don't get it, man. Am I crazy? Am I the only one that thinks this way? Do you think this way? Do you think that, yes, one season, what Calvin Ridley did was horrible and atrocious, an affront to God himself for betting on the NFL? Or are you on the complete opposite end of the spectrum? Should, you know, as long as it's proven that he wasn't betting against his team, especially since he was on injured reserve, that he shouldn't get a suspension? Or do you think that there should be a compromise and that maybe there's an appeal process and he can get that sentence lessened? I'm hoping so, just for his sake. This is so insane. It's so stupid. You know, Roger Goodell is really in the running against Robert Manfred for the worst commissioner of the leagues. Now, I still think Robert Manfred is the worst commissioner out of all the commissioners of American sports. But, you know, sometimes I am reminded that there is a close runner-up, and that is Roger Goodell. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I know it wasn't like too informative or anything. Just, again, putting my 2 cents out there in the situation. Want to know what you guys think of it all. You know, it's one of the big talking points of today. But, you know, if you guys enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And if you do subscribe, then go ahead and hit the notification bell so you can be notified whenever a brand new video drops. And you can also hear the train in the background because I live right next to a train track. I have got to move out of here. This is Jackson Law from Vendetta Sports Media, signing off. And I will see you guys next time.